So usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of precision, like engineering almost.
Right, yeah, it's very binary.
Exactly. You break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points at it and says, there it is, broken.
Because we inherently crave that kind of visible, categorized certainty when it comes to our health. We want to see the problem.
We really do. But when you step out of that sterile doctor's office and you go into the seemingly pristine world of like a boutique wellness space,
Yeah,
that binary safety completely vanishes.
it does. It completely disappears.
And that's what this deep dive is all about today.
Yeah.
We are walking into an environment where the illusion of a clean surface hides a shockingly complex, heavily regulated reality.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I want you, the listener, to just picture an environment that you probably associate with total relaxation,
Yeah.
pampering, self-care.
Like a high-end spa, right?
Right. You walk through the glass doors of a massage clinic or maybe a boutique tattoo studio or a luxury beauty salon, and you're immediately hit with this pristine aesthetic.
Oh, yeah. Everything is gleaming white, maybe some muted earth tones.
Yes, exactly. And there's that very specific, calming, lo-fi music playing softly from, like, hidden speakers somewhere in the ceiling.
And the air always smells like lavender or expensive eucalyptus oil.
Always the eucalyptus oil.
Yeah.
And you are completely lulled into a sense of security because visually it is spotless. I mean, it's just tidy.
But we have to draw a massive structural distinction today between a space being aesthetically tidy and a space being biologically sanitary.
Which is a huge difference.
A massive difference. Because when you strip away the eucalyptus oil and the lo-fi music, safety in these environments doesn't just boil down to simple common sense
Right.
or even visual cleanliness. It is governed by a rigid, deeply technical legal framework.
Which is exactly what we are unpacking today. We have gathered a massive stack of behind-the-scenes documentation. We're talking health and safety inspection reports, compliance letters, warning notices, and these really heavy regulatory frameworks.
Like the Control of Substances Hazardous to Health,
Yeah.
or COSHH, which we will get into.
Yes, COSHH. We are going to decode the reality lurking just behind the beaded curtain of your favorite everyday businesses.
It's eye-opening, honestly.
It really is. We are looking at the hidden mechanics of cross-contamination, the subtle dangers of chemical mismanagement, and even completely invisible structural hazards in the building itself.
Not to mention the severe legal consequences when the people in charge fail to control those risks.
Which is a huge part of this.
Yeah.
It fundamentally rewires how you perceive these spaces. You really start seeing the microscopic and chemical battlegrounds instead of just, the mood lighting.
You really do.
So let's start at the absolute point of physical contact, the moment the treatment actually begins.
Right, the tools.
Exactly. The tools used directly on your skin, your nails, your cuticles. Because looking through these inspection reports, there is a massive recurring red flag regarding something that seems so incredibly mundane.
Single-use items.
Yes.
Yes.
Specifically, therapists frequently cleaning and reusing porous cardboard emery boards between clients. And they just use like an antibacterial spray to wipe them down.
Which, physically and chemically, is just an impossible task.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot sanitize a porous material with a surface spray. It just does not work.
See, I was trying to visualize the mechanics of this, and I keep coming back to a regular, cheap kitchen sponge.
Ah, that's a great comparison.
Right. Like imagine you use it to scrub last night's lasagna dish, so it's full of grease, food particles, whatever. If you then took a single antibacterial wet wipe, gave the outside of that sponge a quick wipe, and then offered it to a guest to, wipe their face.
They would look at you like you were insane.
Exactly. If you wouldn't use a stranger's dirty sponge on your face, why in the world would you let a reused sprayed cardboard file anywhere near your cuticles?
You wouldn't, or you shouldn't anyway. And that sponge analogy perfectly captures the microscopic physics at play here.
Break that down for us. What's actually happening at the microscopic level?
Well, when we look at the material science of cardboard, paper, and the adhesives used in those emery boards, we aren't looking at a flat, smooth surface.
It looks flat to the naked eye, though.
Right, but at the microscopic level, it is a vast, cavernous landscape. Think of crevices, tunnels, and overlapping fibers.
Like a microscopic cave system.
Exactly. So when a practitioner drags that file across a human nail and the surrounding skin, it acts like a microscopic rake.
Oh, gross.
Yeah, it collects biological debris. Dead skin cells, natural oils, microscopic droplets of blood if the cuticle is even slightly nicked.
Fungal spores, bacteria.
All of it. And all of that biological matter is pushed deep into the porous structural matrix of the cardboard.
And then they just mist it with a spray bottle.
Right. The liquid is just sitting on the outer crust of that matrix. It barely penetrates at all.
So it's not actually reaching the bacteria hiding in the tunnels.
Not even close. Surface sprays are engineered for non-porous environments, things like stainless steel tables, glass mirrors, or sealed ceramic.
Where the liquid can actually touch everything.
Right, where it can achieve full unhindered contact with the contaminants. But when you mist an emery board, the liquid simply cannot navigate down into those microscopic caverns where the biological debris is safely harbored.
Wow.
The structural reality is unequivocal. Porous items are completely incapable of being adequately cleaned and sanitized. They have to be disposed of between clients.
So I'm looking at these compliance letters,
Yeah.
and this is a widespread failure across licensed massage, tattoo, and beauty salons. Why does it happen so frequently?
Well, it's a few things.
Is it just like practitioners watching their bottom line and not wanting to buy 1,000 disposable files?
Minor cost savings play a role, certainly. Throwing away a tool after a 10-minute manicure feels inherently wasteful to someone running a tight margin business.
Right, that makes sense.
But there is a much more dangerous psychological element at play here. It's the false sense of security provided by the ritual of cleaning.
The ritual of cleaning, I like that phrasing.
Yeah, think about it. The practitioner sprays the file, it smells strongly of chemicals, it looks slightly damp, and their brain just registers the item as clean.
Because they did the action.
Exactly. They have satisfied the physical ritual of sanitation without achieving the scientific reality of it.
It's the performance of safety rather than the execution of it.
That's a perfect way to put it.
But it isn't just the disposable items failing this test. The compliance data also details massive failures in managing non-disposable items.
Oh, yeah. The metal tools.
Right, the metal clippers, the glass files, the stainless steel scissors. Salons are constantly getting flagged for failing to use chemical baths like Darbicide correctly.
Which is a huge issue.
They aren't fully immersing the items, or they aren't leaving them in the liquid for the manufacturer's recommended time.
Because disinfectants are not magic wands. They don't just instantly kill everything on contact.
They need time to work.
Right. They rely on chemical reactions that require sustained time to break down cellular walls and denature viral proteins.
So the 10 minutes on the bottle isn't just a suggestion.
No, the manufacturer's instructions are scientifically tested parameters, not casual suggestions. But there is another deeply troubling failure mode with these chemical baths mentioned in the compliance data.
That's it.
Businesses often fail to follow the dilution instructions. They end up mixing cleaning chemicals like Metazim or Barbicide far too strong.
See, my initial thought when I read that was, well, extra clean, right?
That's what most people think.
Yeah, like you want the chemical bath to be a nuclear strike against bacteria. But the reports point out this is actually terrible for the client.
It is genuinely awful for the client. If the solution is overconcentrated, you aren't just killing bacteria more effectively, you are leaving highly reactive chemical residues layered on the metal tools.
Oh, wow. Because it doesn't rinse off properly.
Exactly. And when those tools are then utilized on a client, especially in an environment involving open cuticles, microabrasions from shaving, or freshly pierced skin, that concentrated chemical residue is introduced directly into the localized tissue.
You're essentially delivering a localized chemical burn while trying to give someone a manicure.
Or inducing severe acute allergic reactions. I mean, the skin is a highly sensitive organ, and industrial disinfectants are formulated to destroy biological material.
So if you mess with the ratio, you're hurting the client.
Yes. When you mess with the dilution ratio, you are weaponizing the tool against the client's tissue.
Which brings up an even more fascinating chemical failure regarding the products used directly on the client's skin before a treatment even begins.
The skin sanitizers.
Yes, the skin sanitizers. The inspection letters specifically call out a recurring violation, which is salons using 30% isopropyl alcohol swabs.
Right.
And the mandate from the inspectors is that they must use either a 70% alcohol-impregnated single-use swab or a 0.5% chlorhexidine in 70% alcohol single-use swab.
The jump from 30% to 70% is not arbitrary at all. It represents a fundamental shift in cellular biology.
See, I would assume that if you want to kill bacteria on the skin before, say, a piercing, you'd want 100% alcohol, like pure solvent.
That is a very common misconception.
Right. Why is the legal standard capped at 70%, and why does 30% completely fail? Does the 30% just wash over the bacteria without actually breaching the cell?
You've hit on the exact mechanism for the 30%, but let's look at how alcohol actually destroys a bacterial cell first.
Okay, let's do it.
It operates through protein denaturation. It essentially unwinds and cooks the proteins that make up the cell wall.
Like cooking an egg white.
Exactly like that. But for alcohol to perform this effectively, it absolutely requires water as a catalyst.
Wait, so without water, the pure alcohol is actually less lethal to the bacteria?
Dramatically less lethal. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's true.
That is wild. How does that work?
Well, if you apply 100% alcohol to a bacterial cell, the pure solvent causes the proteins in the outer membrane to coagulate almost instantly. It happens so fast that it creates a hardened protective shell around the entire cell.
Oh, so it accidentally protects it.
Yes. The alcohol cannot penetrate this new armor. The bacteria essentially goes into a dormant state, but it is not destroyed.
So it's just sleeping.
Exactly. And the moment the environment becomes favorable again, it reactivates.
Wow. Okay, and if you go down to 30%?
At 30%, the mixture is predominantly water. It lacks the solvent power necessary to dissolve the lipid layers of the bacterial cell wall.
So it's basically just a weak bath.
Pretty much, as you guessed, it essentially just gives the bacteria a bath. It might mechanically wash some away if you wipe hard enough with the swab, but it isn't reliably destroying them.
Which makes 70% the Goldilocks zone.
Exactly. The 70% mixture contains enough water to delay the immediate coagulation of the outer cell wall.
Giving it time to get in.
Yes. This crucial delay allows the alcohol to fully penetrate the lipid membrane and enter the cell. Once inside, the alcohol denatures the internal proteins, effectively destroying the cell from the inside out.
That is so cool.
So when a health inspector flags a business for using 30% isopropyl alcohol, they are recognizing a fundamental breakdown in basic microbiology.
The Salon is just failing to provide a sanitized canvas for the treatment.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've established that the physical tools and the chemical skin preps might be harboring microscopic nightmares due to porous materials and, bad chemistry.
Right.
Let's look at the human element, the practitioner wielding those tools, and the physical architecture of the room itself.
This is where it gets really interesting regarding space design.
Yeah, because we have to talk about the severe risks of cross-contamination, particularly in skin-piercing activities like acupuncture or tattooing. The compliance data highlights a massive structural issue, which is the lack of proper washing facilities inside the actual treatment rooms.
Right. In the realm of infection control, physical layout dictates behavioral compliance.
Meaning, if it's hard to do, people won't do it.
Exactly. The inspectors are constantly mandating the installation of fixed wash hand basins with hot and cold running water, soap, and paper towels directly within the treatment space.
Because think about the mechanics of this if the sink is down the hall. A therapist is doing a piercing. They have gloved hands, potentially dealing with bodily fluids.
Blood, plasma, yeah.
If they need to wash their hands, they have to open the treatment room door, walk down a hallway, and open a bathroom door. Haven't they just turned every single door handle into a massive biohazard transmission point?
They absolutely have. They have constructed an invisible chain of infection mapped directly across the physical space of the clinic.
That is terrifying.
We refer to these as touch points.
Touch points.
Right. A touch point is any surface subjected to frequent hand contact. Door handles, light switches, drawer pulls, even the lever that adjusts the massage table.
Oh, I didn't even think about the table levers.
Yeah. If the sink is located outside the immediate treatment area, the practitioner contaminates the door handle on the way out, washes their hands, and then must touch that exact same contaminated handle to re-enter the room.
Defeating the entire purpose of washing their hands.
Exactly. They have instantly compromised their freshly washed hands before they even approach the client again.
So, the regulatory fallback mentioned in the letters is that if they absolutely cannot install a sink in the room, they have to ensure all touch points, like every handle and finger plate, are cleaned and disinfected regularly.
That's the workaround, legally speaking.
But practically speaking, in a busy salon where a therapist is running behind schedule, relying on them to perfectly disinfect a door handle every single time they walk through it seems like a statistical impossibility.
It is operationally unfeasible, which is why the primary legal mandate focuses on structural modification, putting the sink where the work happens.
Right, make it easy to comply.
Exactly. But this human element of infection control doesn't end with the architecture of the room. It extends to the physical appearance and personal grooming of the operators themselves.
Oh, right, the nails.
The health inspectors are repeatedly enforcing a strict rule. All operators must keep their nails clean and short, with an absolute ban on wearing false nails, acrylics, or nail extensions.
The irony here is just incredible to me.
How so?
You have clients going to a beauty salon, which is an environment entirely dedicated to aesthetic enhancement. And the professionals providing those aesthetic treatments are legally forbidden from partaking in one of the most common beauty trends of the decade.
It perfectly illustrates the profound conflict between aesthetic desires and occupational health standards.
Why are acrylics so dangerous in this setting, though?
Well, acrylic nails and extensions involve bonding a rigid artificial structure over the natural nail bed.
Right.
Through the constant daily use of the hands, microscopic fissures, cracks, and gaps inevitably form between the artificial material and the natural nail.
Wait, it's a cardboard emery board problem all over again, isn't it?
Yes, you are creating microscopic caverns.
Right on the tips of your fingers.
Precisely. And no matter how vigorously or frequently a practitioner washes their hands, the surface tension of soap and water prevents it from penetrating those microscopic gaps.
So they just stay dirty.
They become permanent, shielded breeding grounds for bacteria, most notably a pathogen called Pseudomonas.
Pseudomonas.
Yeah, it's a type of bacteria that thrives in those moist, protected environments. If a practitioner with compromised acrylics is performing a facial, an extraction, or a piercing, they risk transferring that bacteria directly into a client's open skin or mucous membranes.
Just by accidentally brushing against them.
Yeah. Furthermore, the sheer length and rigid edge of artificial nails dramatically increase the risk of accidentally puncturing disposable gloves from the inside.
Oh, which completely neutralizes the primary biological barrier.
Exactly. If your nail pokes a hole in the glove is useless.
The compliance documents also heavily stress the recommendation for practitioners to be immunized against hepatitis B,
Yes.
which really grounds the severity of this conversation for me.
Right.
We aren't just talking about a client getting a mild rash or a localized skin infection. We are talking about the transmission of serious blood-borne pathogens.
The legal framework recognizes that these environments, particularly those involving skin penetration, operate on the exact same biological risk profile as a medical clinic.
There's a detail in the source material regarding the visual hazard symbols required by law, and one of them is the classic biohazard symbol.
Oh, yeah, the 3 crescents.
Yeah, when I see those 3 overlapping crescent moons inside the warning triangle, my brain immediately goes to, like, outbreak movies, government laboratories, scientists in full pressurized hazmat suits. I do not think of a boutique acupuncture studio with a bamboo water feature in the lobby.
Right. The vibe doesn't match the reality. But from a legal and biological standpoint, that exact biohazard symbol applies to the mundane reality of that studio.
Because the risk is the same.
The biological risks living microorganisms capable of causing severe disease are identical to those in a clinical lab. The setting is just draped in a more comfortable aesthetic.
Which naturally leads us to what happens after the client leaves. The treatment is over, the soothing music is still playing, but the practitioner is left with a physical aftermath.
The waste.
A pile of used cotton swabs, tissues, perhaps some blood-spotted dressings or used wax strips. We are shifting to the intensely complex reality of waste disposal, specifically what the sources detail as the 7-kilo rule.
Yes, 7-kilo rule. Waste represents the physical accumulation of all the hazards we've just mapped out.
Right.
And the inspection reports note a highly dangerous yet very common practice occurring in these centers, which is the improper disposal of waste cotton, swabs, and dressings contaminated with bodily fluids directly into general public rubbish bins.
Literally just bagging it up and tossing it in the municipal trash can out back, or like a mall trash can next to a food court.
Which is a severe violation.
I would assume so.
The law is extremely rigid regarding biological material. Waste that may contain living microorganisms or toxins known to cause disease is strictly classified as hazardous waste. Blood and body fluids definitively fall into this category.
Okay, so this is where I struggle to understand the logic, because the regulations introduce a fascinating logistical threshold
Right.
based on sheer quantity.
The threshold is where people get confused.
Right. The rule states that soft waste things like used swabs, dressings, gloves, and aprons that don't contain sharp needles require strict segregation as offensive or hygiene waste. only if it is generated in quantities of more than 7 kilograms during any given collection interval.
Exactly, 7 kilos.
If a business produces less than 7 kilograms, they are legally allowed to throw it into the black bag stream with the regular rubbish.
Yes, they are.
So wait, 6.9 kilos of blood-spotted cotton is perfectly safe regular trash that the local garbage collector can toss in the back of a municipal truck, but 7.1 kilos of the exact same material is suddenly a highly regulated biohazard requiring specialized disposal.
That is exactly how the law is written.
The biological danger of the blood itself doesn't magically change at 7 kilos, so is this just a massive legal loophole?
It sounds paradoxical, I know, but it actually highlights the inherent necessary pragmatism behind public health and safety regulations.
Pragmatism, how so?
Well, laws cannot always operate on absolute pure biological idealism. They have to constantly balance absolute safety with logistical and infrastructural reality.
Wait, are you saying that the law operates on the assumption that the municipal trash system is essentially a giant dilution machine?
That's a great way to put it, yes.
Like the city trucks just can't handle a specialized biohazard pickup for every single tissue generated in a city.
That is exactly the reality of it. Think about the macro-level logistics of a city's waste management system.
Okay.
Every single human being generates a baseline level of biological waste at home. Tissues used during a severe cold, Band-Aids covering a scraped knee, feminine hygiene products.
Sure, yeah.
The municipal waste system is explicitly designed to handle a massive, highly diluted baseline of biological material.
Okay, I see where this is going.
If the law mandated that any amount of blood-spotted cotton required specialized biohazard incineration, the entire national waste management infrastructure would collapse overnight.
It would just be completely overwhelmed.
Completely. There simply aren't enough specialized trucks, trained handlers, or incinerators to process that volume.
So it's entirely about concentration versus dilution.
Yes. A few contaminated swabs from a small beauty salon mixed in with hundreds of pounds of regular commercial trash-like paper, food waste, cardboard packaging presents a statistically negligible risk to the waste handlers and the broader environment.
Because it's spread out.
Right. The biological load is diluted to a safe background level, but once a single business begins producing more than 7 kilograms of concentrated biological waste in a specific interval, the risk profile changes dramatically.
It's no longer diluted.
Exactly. It has become a dense, localized hazard. The 7-kilo threshold is the legal line drawn in the sand where the state says your business is now a significant biological generator and you must pay for the specialized infrastructure to handle it safely.
And the sources are clear that businesses can't just guess or eyeball the weight.
No, absolutely not.
They are legally required to conduct specific risk assessments to determine the likelihood of infectious microorganisms in their unique waste streams. They have to actively monitor, weigh, and document what they're throwing away. Ignorance of the volume is a direct compliance failure.
They must definitively prove to the inspectors that they understand the precise nature of their waste, the total quantity generated, and the associated risks.
It's darkly ironic, really.
What is?
Well, we've established how strictly the state monitors the biological waste a salon throws away, but when you look at these COSHH reports, the chemicals these businesses are buying to clean up that waste are being handled with shocking negligence.
Oh, the chemical side of things is a whole other level of chaos.
We are moving from the hazards going out the back door to the chemical roulette coming in the front door.
The control of substances hazardous to health, which is COHH, is a fundamental pillar of occupational health and safety. And one of the most alarming yet visually innocuous practices noted in the inspection letters is the storage of hazardous chemicals in completely unlabeled containers.
Okay, think about the last time you were sitting in a chair getting a treatment and someone was mopping the floor 3 feet away from you. You assume they are using a standard safe floor cleaner.
Naturally.
But based on these reports, neither you nor the employee actually knows what's in that bucket. Now, I have to admit, I kind of understand the impulse here from an aesthetic standpoint.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If I buy bulk shampoo or dish soap for my house, I often pour it into a really cute, minimalist frosted glass pump bottle, so my bathroom looks like a high-end spa. It's just good interior design.
It looks much better, for sure.
Right. Why is it a literal criminal offense for a salon owner to do this exact same thing with their cleaning products to maintain their aesthetic?
It comes down to the vast difference between a domestic environment and occupational health law. In your home, you are the sole arbiter of risk.
I know what I bought.
Exactly. You know what you poured into that frosted glass bottle. But in a workplace, the employer bears a strict legal duty of care to their employees and to the public.
Ah,
Under COHH Regulation 7.4, employees have a fundamental, legally protected right to know exactly what chemical substances they are being exposed to in the course of their work.
so you can't just hand a junior employee a mysterious blue liquid in an unmarked spray bottle and say, go scrub the floors.
You really can't. When a chemical is stripped of its original packaging and decanted into an unlabeled aesthetic container, all of the critical life-saving safety information vanishes.
Like what kind of information?
Well, what is the active chemical ingredient? What is the correct dilution ratio? Is it highly flammable? Does it react violently with bleach or ammonia?
Right, all the stuff on the back of the bottle.
Exactly. If an employee accidentally splashes it in their eye, what exact information does the emergency medical team need to know to save their vision? An unlabeled bottle in a commercial setting is a ticking time bomb of unknown variables.
And the compliance letters show how this leads to cascading failures, specifically when businesses try to substitute one chemical for another.
This happens all the time.
An inspector notes a case where a salon swapped a hazardous chemical for a supposedly less hazardous one. But because they didn't update their formal COSHH risk assessments or their labeling, they were still in massive violation.
Because the concept of a chemical being less hazardous is entirely relative, and it's highly specific to the exposure route.
What do you mean by exposure route?
Well, chemical A might be less toxic to inhale than chemical B, but chemical A might be highly corrosive to bare skin, whereas B was not.
Oh, I see.
If a manager doesn't update the formal risk assessment and provide the new manufacturer safety data sheets to the employees, the staff will inevitably handle chemical A using the safety protocols meant for chemical B.
Because they don't know any better.
Right. They might use the wrong type of nitrile gloves or no gloves at all, thinking the new chemical is safer, and end up with severe chemical burns.
It strips away all context. The sources provide images of the hazard labels that are legally required to be on these chemicals, and they are incredibly intense.
They're designed to grab your attention.
Definitely. There's a diamond showing test tubes pouring acid that is literally eating through a metal bar and a human hand. That's the corrosive symbol.
Very evocative.
Yeah. There's the classic skull and crossbones for toxic substances. There's a circle with flames for oxidizing agents. When a salon pours a chemical into a beautiful unlabeled bottle to match their decor, they are actively erasing those visual warnings.
They are blinding their employees to the reality of the danger. And this systemic failure to respect chemical realities leads to another severe COHH violation mentioned in the reports.
What's that?
Using a single sink unit for mixing hazardous chemicals and for staff welfare purposes.
Oh, man. So we're talking about mixing industrial bleach or barbicide in the exact same sink, where the staff washes their coffee mugs and their lunch Tupperware.
Yes, and the physics and chemistry of residual contamination come into play here.
Even if they rinse it out.
Even if a sink is visually rinsed, chemical residues can and will cling to the microscopic abrasions in porcelain or stainless steel.
So it's never really clean.
Not chemically, no. If an employee washes their hands, rinses a cup, or washes a piece of fruit in that same sink, they risk accidental ingestion of or dermal contact with hazardous industrial substances.
I'm also thinking about the plumbing itself, like the P-trap under the sink.
Exactly, the U-bend in the pipe. It is designed to hold water to prevent sewer gases from coming up.
Right.
But in a shared sink, it also holds whatever chemicals were just poured down it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. If an employee pours an ammonia-based glass cleaner down the drain, and 20 minutes later, another employee pours a bleach-based floor cleaner down that exact same drain, those chemicals pool and react in the U-bend.
And ammonia and bleach make
Chloramine gas. That specific reaction releases toxic chloramine gas directly back up through the drain and into the staff break area.
That is so dangerous.
It's incredibly dangerous. The inspector's mandate is simple and non-negotiable. Physically segregate the sinks. One dedicated exclusively for chemicals, one dedicated exclusively for human welfare.
It's wild how an aesthetic choice, like an unmarked bottle, layers with a seemingly practical choice, like using a shared sink, to potentially create a gas chamber in the break room.
It really is a cascade of bad decisions.
But it gets even worse when we zoom out and look at the building itself. We are moving from the treatment rooms and the chemical closets into the back of house, the mechanical spaces that keep the building running.
The infrastructure.
Because the sources reveal that even if the salon is perfectly clean on the surface, the hidden infrastructure can be a literal trap.
The inspection reports highlight some truly explosive infrastructure hazards.
Literally explosive.
Yes, and the most shocking example provided is the storage of car batteries directly next to the building's boiler.
Okay, I need to postulate how this even happens. How does a commercial health and beauty business end up with a car battery next to a boiler? And why is that suddenly an explosive situation? It sounds like a contrived setup for an action movie.
I know, it sounds ridiculous, but it happens because of the brutal economics of commercial real estate.
Oh, because space is expensive.
Incredibly expensive. An owner will dedicate every possible square foot of the front of the salon to revenue generation. Treatment tables, retail displays, waiting areas.
So the back gets squeezed.
Right. The mechanical rooms, the boiler cupboard, the utility closet, they become out-of-sight dumping grounds for everything else.
Just shoving stuff wherever it fits.
Yeah. An owner might have a backup power generator or specialized equipment that uses large lead-acid batteries, and they simply shove them in the warmest, driest, most out-of-the-way place they can find, completely hidden from the customer's view.
But the chemistry of that storage choice is catastrophic. The inspector notes that hydrogen and oxygen can be emitted by the battery at times other than charging, especially if it's moved or shaken.
This involves the science of off-gassing. Lead-acid batteries contain a sulfuric acid electrolyte. As they charge, or even simply as they sit and slowly degrade over time, a chemical reaction occurs that splits the water in the electrolyte into hydrogen gas and oxygen gas.
Okay, and hydrogen gas is an issue.
Hydrogen is the lightest element in the universe. It rises rapidly and disperses. If you place that battery in a small, unventilated mechanical cupboard, that hydrogen gas gets trapped and builds up at the ceiling.
And the inspector specifically notes that an explosive atmosphere is created if the concentration of hydrogen in the air exceeds just 4%.
4%. It is an incredibly low threshold for a highly volatile gas. That's the lower explosive limit, or LEL.
So it barely takes any gas at all.
Right. Now consider the equipment sitting right next to it in that cramped cupboard. A commercial boiler.
Which has a pilot light.
A boiler is filled with electrical relays that click on and off constantly, creating tiny, almost invisible sparks. Or older boiler models might have a standing pilot light, which is a literal open flame.
So you have gas and an ignition source right next to each other.
By placing those two items in the same unventilated space, you have inadvertently built a bomb in the back room of a massage clinic.
The sources reference the explosive and flammable hazard symbols here. The diamond with the exploding bomb, and the diamond with the flame over a flat line, and the inspector lists a cascading series of hazards.
It's not just the explosion.
Right, explosion is the primary one, yes, but if it ruptures, you also have chemical burns from the atomized sulfuric acid mist.
Awful.
You have severe electrical arcing risks if any metal tools or shelving touch the battery terminals. You even have musculoskeletal disorders from staff trying to improperly lift these incredibly heavy blocks of lead in a cramped, awkward space.
It is the ultimate example of hazard layering, stacking multiple, distinct risks on top of each other until a failure is just inevitable.
But the infrastructure risks aren't just explosive and chemical, right? They are biological as well.
Absolutely.
Because the sources bring up the severe risk of Legionella bacteria in the hot and cold water systems.
Yes. Legionella.
We know Legionella causes Legionnaire's disease, but how does it manifest in a salon? I'm assuming it has to do with how commercial water systems degrade over time.
Legionella bacteria thrive in stagnant, warm water environments. A modern beauty salon, or spa, utilizes incredibly complex water systems. You've got multiple showers, specialized foot baths, facial steamers.
Lots of pipes.
Exactly. If those intricate water systems aren't designed, operated, and maintained precisely according to the approved code of practice, which is legally known as L8, they become massive breeding grounds.
The mechanics of this are fascinating. The L8 code heavily targets something called dead legs in commercial plumbing retrofits, right?
Dead legs, exactly. When a commercial space is renovated to become a salon, plumbers often cap off old pipes that are no longer needed.
Okay, so it's a pipe that leads nowhere.
Right. This creates a dead leg, a section of pipe where water just sits, completely stagnant, slowly warming up to room temperature.
Which is exactly what Legionella wants.
The Legionella bacteria in that stagnant water multiply exponentially. Eventually, that contaminated dead leg leaches bacteria back into the main active water line.
Oh, so it poisons the rest of the system.
Yeah. When a practitioner finally turns on a shower or a facial steamer connected to that system, it aerosolizes the bacteria into a fine mist. Anyone in that room inhaling that steam is exposed directly in their lungs.
And the inspector makes a crucial legal point here regarding COSH regulations. The employer's responsibility doesn't just apply to their hired staff.
No, it is much broader than that.
They are legally required to consider the risks to persons not in their employment. That means the client getting the facial, the delivery driver dropping off fresh towels, the postal worker walking in the front door. They are responsible for the air everyone breathes in that building.
Their duty of care extends to the absolute boundaries of the physical environment they control.
And speaking of the physical boundaries, the final infrastructure hazard noted is a failure of structural integrity regarding pest control.
Which is always unpleasant to talk about.
Yeah. The sources specifically mention the risk from rats, their droppings, and parasites entering the building.
Which completely and utterly shatters that pristine, high-end aesthetic illusion we started the deep dive with.
It pulls back the curtain entirely.
Yeah.
You imagine getting a massage and hearing scratching in the wall?
It's awful.
Hmm.
Rats are vectors for a multitude of pathogens. Their droppings can contaminate sterilized surfaces, and they can introduce secondary parasites like fleas or mites into an environment where people are routinely exposing bare skin for treatments.
You're completely vulnerable.
Right. The Health and Safety at Work Act mandates that remedial works must be undertaken to physically prevent pests from entering the building.
So it's not just, hey, put out some rat poison.
No, it's not just about setting traps after the fact. It's about structural integrity.
Yeah.
Sealing holes, fixing external vents, ensuring the building envelope is secure.
So we've journeyed from the microscopic bacteria hiding in an emery board to the chemical burns of overconcentrated barbicide, through the biological chain of infection on door handles into the explosive potential of a backroom battery, and finally to rats in the walls.
It's a lot.
It feels like an absolute gauntlet of hazards. But as we move into the final section of our deep dive, the sources take a really interesting turn.
They do.
We transition away from these extreme, almost cinematic hazards and look at the incredibly mundane, everyday dangers. And, more importantly, we see how the law actually drops the hammer on businesses that fail to manage them.
This is a vital transition because statistically, the acute disasters, the boiler explosions, and severe bloodborne infections are rare.
Thankfully.
But the chronic mundane dangers are what quietly destroy people's health and livelihoods over years. The inspector reports extensively highlight issues like poor ergonomics and simple tripping hazards.
Yeah, the inspector notes that the vacuum cleaner and other equipment were haphazardly stored in a cramped cupboard, creating a daily tripping hazard for the staff.
Very common.
And this one really stuck out to me. The chairs provided at the office workstation were non-adjustable.
Ah, yes.
The inspector cites the workplace regulations of 1992, stating that unsuitable seating causes awkward postures, which directly lead to discomfort, chronic back pain, and upper limb disorders.
Which can be career-ending.
It's like we focus so much on the shark attacks, the chemical explosions, and the biohazards that we totally ignore the undertow. The bad chair or the tripped-over vacuum cleaner in the dark hallway is the undertow. It's the thing that actually ruins an employee's life and mobility over a 5-year period.
That is a very astute way to frame it. The legal framework of occupational health and safety does not discriminate between the dramatic and the mundane.
They treat a bad chair seriously.
Absolutely. It actively prioritizes chronic cumulative injuries just as much as acute disasters because the aggregate loss of quality of life and the long-term financial burden on the healthcare system is often vastly greater from a lifetime of chronic back pain than from a single minor chemical splash.
That makes total sense.
The employer has an absolute legal duty to provide suitable seating and orderly storage, period.
So what actually happens when they don't? We've talked about all these cascading failures. How does the enforcement mechanism work? Because reading the language in these compliance letters from the inspectors, it is not polite.
No, it is not a suggestion box.
It is incredibly forceful. These letters are basically ultimatums.
Health and safety inspectors possess immense, sweeping statutory power. When they conduct an inspection and identify these failures, they issue formal, legally binding notices under the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974.
And it escalates pretty quickly.
The sources outline a very clear, rigid escalation process. Often, for less immediate risks, they will give a strict 12-week deadline to comply with a detailed list of required improvements.
The exact phrasing in the letter is, I will have no option but to take formal action should this requirement not be completed within the time period. There is no wiggle room.
None. And the formal action takes the shape of specific, powerful legal instruments. An improvement notice gives the business a legally mandated time frame to fix a specific problem.
Okay, so that's the first step.
But if the risk is severe and imminent, like the unlabeled corrosive chemicals or the explosive hydrogen buildup from the battery, the inspector can and will issue a prohibition notice.
Explain the mechanics of a prohibition notice. What does that actually look like on the ground for a business owner?
A prohibition notice means the specific work activity must stop immediately, right then and there.
Wait, like immediately?
Instantly. The business cannot legally continue that operation, whether it's using that boiler, mixing those chemicals, or operating that treatment room, until the inspector is fully satisfied that the risk is definitively controlled.
So they just shut you down.
Yes. It is a massive, immediate disruption to revenue and daily operations.
The sources mention that businesses have 21 days to appeal a notice to an employment tribunal. But I'm assuming a prohibition notice doesn't just get paused because you've filed some paperwork, right?
Correct. If a business appeals an improvement notice, the requirement to fix the issue is temporarily suspended until the tribunal hears the case.
Okay.
But if they appeal a prohibition notice, the notice remains fully active. The work stays stopped.
Wow.
The law explicitly errs on the side of preserving human life and health, not preserving business revenue during a lengthy legal dispute.
That is intense.
But the ultimate hammer, the thing that every employer dreads, is the final warning peppered throughout these compliance documents.
Criminal liability.
Exactly. Failure to adequately control these risks is a criminal offense.
The quote is, and as such may result in prosecution. This isn't just a corporate fine where the LLC pays a penalty out of their operational budget and everyone moves on.
No. Health and safety law is unique in that it allows for the piercing of the corporate veil.
Piercing the corporate veil.
Yeah.
Meaning they go after the person, not just the company.
Right. If an inspector determines that the catastrophic failures were due to the consent, connivance, or neglect of a specific director, manager, or owner, those individuals can be held personally and criminally liable.
So they can't hide behind the business name?
No. They aren't just facing corporate fines, they face permanent criminal records, massive personal financial penalties, and in severe cases of negligence leading to injury or death, actual imprisonment.
Jail time for a bad salon setup.
The legal responsibility is absolute and inescapable.
Wow. Okay, let's take a breath and recap the journey we've just been on. We started by walking through the glass doors into a space of pure aesthetics, lo-fi music, and relaxation.
A sanctuary, supposedly.
But through the lens of these COSHH regulations and compliance letters, we've mapped a completely different reality. We've seen the microscopic battlefield of porous, reused emery boards.
The kitchen sponge on the face.
Exactly. We've traced the invisible transmission of pathogens across unwashed door handles. We've weighed the logistical pragmatism of the 7-kilo waste rule, played chemical roulette with unlabeled bottles, mapped the chemistry of a shared sink making toxic gas, and found literal explosive hazards ticking away in the boiler room.
And standing over all of it is the heavy, uncompromising weight of criminal law.
It forces a fundamental shift in perspective, moving you from a passive consumer of aesthetics to an active observer of occupational reality.
It really does. You can't unsee it once you know.
So the takeaway for you, the listener, is this. The next time you walk into a beautifully lit, sweet-smelling salon, clinic, or studio, your eyes are now trained to look behind the aesthetics.
You're going to be looking for a lot of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're going to notice if the nail file came out of a fresh wrapper or if it looks worn. You're going to look for exactly where the hand-washing sink is located relative to the treatment chair.
Count the touch points.
Count the door handles. You'll glance at the cleaning bottles on the cart to see if they actually have legally mandated hazard labels on them, or if they're just cute glass bottles. You are no longer just a client. You are an informed observer of a complex, heavily regulated environment.
Which leaves us with a fascinating, almost philosophical question to ponder long after we finish speaking.
What's that?
Well, we have culturally been trained to associate cleanliness with minimalism. You know, gleaming white surfaces, hidden equipment, unmarked frosted glass bottles.
Right. The cleaner it looks, the safer we feel.
But does the pristine, minimalist aesthetic of modern wellness and beauty spaces actively work against our perception of risk?
Oh, wow.
By designing spaces that intentionally hide the ugly, heavily labeled realities of industrial chemicals and biological waste, are we making ourselves deliberately blind to the biological and chemical realities happening just an inch away from our skin?
That is a wild thought. Are the aesthetics the very thing making it dangerous? Because we just assume they've got it handled. Like we said at the beginning, sometimes the clean, binary picture hides a murky, complicated truth. We'll leave you to think about that one.